Deniability. Or does it? Oh, that's so nasty. I'm glad that was at least cool. Okay, so are we ready or yes? Okay, hot diggity. All right, so the title of this talk is Help for the Help Desk, but it's a little bit of a lie. This is a bit of a different type of talk. I may or may not have just done a ice. How you guys doing? You having fun? Yeah? Yeah? All right, cool, sweet. So I am very humbled and appreciative that you're all here. This is awesome. Thank you so much, especially after you've been out partying, Crystal Method, 3 days of crazy cons. Really appreciate it, so thanks. So gonna start off, be a little interactive. Where's my blue teamers at? Who does defense stuff? That's awesome. Okay, cool. Be proud of the fact that you're blue team. Red teamers, where are you at? Red team, cool. All right. So I've got some stuff for you guys too. This is not just a defensive talk, but the focus is blue team. How many people do both? Do purple? Yeah? That's cool. That's actually where you need to be so that you can see both sides of the house. Now here's where we get a little controversial. Just a bit. Where's my vendors? You know what? Don't even raise your hands. I'm sure I'll be able to point you out as the body language changes from this to this to eventually where you start doing things like this. So, who am I? I'm Mick Douglas. I work at a Fortune 100. I love my job. I've been doing IT stuff for about 20 years. Most of that time, it's actually been security related, even if it's not officially part of my title. I always find myself gravitating to doing things, making it hard for the bad guys to get into my systems, or giving the defensive guys hell. So security is something that I just find myself naturally gravitating toward. It's a lot of fun. I love my profession. The thing that's awesome about this gig is I learn new stuff every day. What I don't know could fill warehouses. I don't consider myself to be super elite, which is part of the problem because as a pen tester, I'm not actually all that awesome, at least compared to folks like Nickerson and others, but the fact that I am able to successfully pop boxes is problematic. I am an unabashed techie. I've got a very understanding wife who let me spend a lot of folding money on Google Glass and stuff like that, so I dig it. This disclaimer, this talk is just me talking, don't infer anything. My lawyer will put on his law dog suspenders. So the agenda, bad news. From a defensive standpoint, we're hosed. I wish I had good news for that. I'm not going to be nearly as eloquent as John Strand about that, but I think there's a couple points that I'd like to tease out that he didn't get into. I think that vendors and ourselves are to blame. And I don't know what the fix is, but I've got an idea of something, a space that we can start playing around in, something that we can actually start shifting the tables from a defensive standpoint. But just the same, that's also a field where the bad guys could start playing in too. And I want to point out a neat toy that I quote unquote found. The reason I put this in quotes is, show of hands here, who's a developer? Does web dev? Okay, hi devs, thanks for showing up. If you're a Windows developer and you do ID management, you probably are already aware of this tool set. But when I've talked to security people, they go, what? This is totally new and crazy. So I want to just, hey, security people, there's this really cool thing, play. So yeah, it's good stuff. Now, the current state of our industry is pretty woeful. We've got a lot of issues with, it's just really weak. The compliance appliance is everywhere. We're having security that is all audit driven, which could be a good opportunity, but it seems that once we get the checkbox, we're good to go, and that's all we stop at. And that's really horrid. And we've passed our audit, right? I defy you to find anyone that is listed in the data loss DB that was not passing audits. Now, I'm sure they had findings. I'm sure that they were, had some stuff to remediate. But the fact that they were in the data loss DB, and still passing audits should be a very damning indictment in the information security audit space. And yet, it's still business as usual, and that's pretty unfortunate. And another problem that I'm seeing is that a lot of companies now are just doing this really weird hand washing, and they say, well, it was APT, there wasn't a damn thing we could do. And when you then go and read the reports of what happened, it's actually quite trivial. Okay, so, going to do another interactive thing. I'm going to ask you to hold your hands up for just a few moments. It's not going to be too long. It won't be embarrassing. Can you do this? So just put your hands up, please. Come on. All right. Thank you so much. All right. Now, put your hand down. Put your hand down if your company spends more on information security defense than the NSA. You spend more? Okay, that's awesome. All right. Now, put your hand down if you think that your company could withstand an attack from the NSA. Okay. So look around. You go ahead and put your hands down, okay? Look, a super majority, a good chunk of the people were vulnerable from that. And they said, hey, you know, we're vulnerable. This is a problem. You know, big deal. Well, here's the thing that's weird. Now, set aside all the current politics of the NSA. 2 years ago, the deputy director of the NSA said that they cannot, with 100% assurance, claim that their network is free of attackers. Let that sink in for a moment. The fact that the NSA is saying that they can't guarantee that they're safe is really horrific. So how are we doing? Show of hands here. Who here reads the Verizon data breach report every year it comes out? Okay, I see a lot of hands. Not everybody has their hands up. For those of you who do have your hands up, awesome, thank you. I know it's a boring read. For those of you who do not raise your hand, I highly encourage you to just kind of plug your nose and read a very boring report. But there's one thing that's very important and salient about this report is on this one page that I've highlighted, there's a chart. And this is the wall of shame. And what I'd like to point out here with my mouse here is this chart, or this graph. This bar indicates what a percentage of compromised systems and companies, how long it took for them to be compromised. And in this case, this chart, this bar indicates that it took hours for the initial compromise. But if you hop down to detection, you will see that the detection range here is in the months. That means that we are compromised for months and not aware of it. For those of you who had your hand up and said that you weren't as well funded as the NSA, this might be some good ammunition to take back home to the corner office and say, hey, we don't want to be these guys. Or maybe, and for some of us, we don't want to be these guys again. All right. Information security is a farce. What we've got is, what we're trying to do is create bars, barriers of entry. And it's like when you go on the kiddie rides where they say you got to be this high to ride the ride. Unfortunately, it's very, very low. And we're not getting much better. And what's even more damning is you go to conferences like this, and I really enjoy the exploits. You know, like the part of me that likes to watch the world burn is like, this is sweet. You know, you see these talks of where people are putting shims into memory for rootkit type functionality. They're doing things like owning without exploits. These are really cool. The sad thing is, it's like pouring gasoline on a fire. We don't need these additional problems because the attackers are having a field day with things that are old hat. You know, we celebrate MS-08, we have the cake because every year it's its birthday and every year it's still viable. It sucks. So let's review our defenses. Our defenses as a whole are pretty weak. Everything top to bottom, there's a countermeasure for it. And I know I'm not saying anything new, but what I am asking you is, and I don't want to see a show of hands here, but have you done a demonstration of these attacks? Have you shown the people who are purchasing these things how weak and ineffectual they are? And if you're not, I challenge you to go ahead and start doing that. Now, I grew up in the 80s, so this might mean something to you or it might not. By the laughs, I see that there's some people who get that. What you need to do is ask your vendors, what have you done for me lately? Vendors hate talking to me because I ask hard questions. And I ask questions like this. Dear antivirus vendor, we have bought your stuff and we have spent $1 million. And oh, let's just pick a round number like 9,572 instances where your product failed. Let's just say. But if you take million and divide it by that very round number, you wind up with a very large number. Hand that number over to your antivirus vendor and say, explain this to me. Why is it that I have to keep on paying for stuff that stinks? Oh, that's right. PCI says I have to have that. That's great. Cool. Check mark. Here's your cash. It's awful. And there's a really good quote from John Strand. He said it a couple times on the pol.com podcast, and he referenced it in his talk yesterday. He says, we're now at a point where we have really, really expensive tools that don't do anything to improve our security. And the things that do work are so very hard. I think the next line went something like, damn it, hold me. And what it boils down to is that we're ill-equipped. We're bringing knives to a gunfight. So is there any surprise that we're having these sorts of outcomes? And there's a couple issues that we're having, not just at the tactical level with the tools that we're employing, but there's a problem that we're having at a strategic level. For starters, we have really dumb playbooks. Our IDS systems are predicated on the idea that once somebody compromises a node, that they're going to start doing things like Nmap scans or ARP scans of the network. Was anybody at Egypt's talk the other day? No? Well, one of the things that he was talking about is some of the new functionality in Meterpreter. And there's some very stealthy stuff that now happens that will totally sail by your IDS IPS. A couple weeks ago now, there was a new Metasploit post module that was released called DNS dump. Look it up. What it does is a railgun call, and it dumps your local DNS cache. That means, without firing a single packet across the network, except to the victim machine, they will know who you've been talking to. Oh, and by the way, the thing that I really like about that particular hack is you can do netstat to get similar type stuff, but it won't show UDP. This will. So you can find your VoIP systems and other streaming like AV training systems, which are awesome targets. So we have really dumb playbooks that are based on attacks that are, in some cases, decades old. Another problem that we have is that we do something like this. Imagine that you're coming to the conference here and you fly in and you hand the cabbie the map and you say, hey, here's where I want to go. Take me to this address. And you get there and it's just a field. There's nothing there. What? But this is a map of Louisville. We're good to go, right? No, that's actually a map of Detroit. You do this every time you do Gartner. When you hear, but Magic Quadrant, that's what's happening here. So we're at a situation where we're having a lot of problems. I think that it's fair to say enough is enough. The writing's on the wall. We're not going to be able to throw enough bodies at the problem. So we need to start changing things. I really applaud the pol.com crew for their work with the ADHD defense systems. That's really neat. but we need to also start changing how, have fun with it. Why not? We need to start changing how we approach things. So some stuff that we should start considering is, how do we free up cycles? How do we start getting opportunity to do things differently? Earlier this year, I was at Marshall University, where I was giving a talk called it was roughly called Tapping the Help Desk. And what the whole point was to offload your security, like run-of-the-mill type stuff, over to the help desk. And it was really interesting how some people received it. A lot of people were like, okay, that seems neat in concept, but I don't trust the help desk. And I was like, well, train them, they will do what you tell them to do. Believe me, having sat on that end of the phone doing a help desk, like, wouldn't you love, like, not having password resets? Like, just, hey, do something fun and interesting for a change would be really neat. And so I gave that talk a couple times, and there's certain amounts of resistance, and I get that. Change is different. At Hacker Halted, I gave a version of this talk, and here I'm giving a version of this talk, that now that we're starting to tap the help desk, let's start equipping them a little bit better. Now, it's odd, but the help desk actually knows what normal is better than most IDS systems. If you're the help desk and you just come back from a 3-day weekend and you don't have any password resets on Tuesday, something's up. I mean, that's just not normal. And show of hands here, how many people have done incident response, IR type stuff? All right, keep your hands up if the help desk has given you a tip that's helped crack the case. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Getting the help desk able to have cycles so that they can think and do things better, tee things up for you, is what this concept is all about. Just making the battlefield a little bit easier for you. The problem that I've found, though, is that there's just too much stuff for the help desk. Just like every security practitioner shows up to work and sips their coffee and says, oh boy, I wonder what I'm going to do today. Well, guess it's time to read the newspaper. Oh wait, you guys don't do that? Neither do I. Well, so the InfoSec people are slammed. There's way too much stuff on their plate. Same deal with the help desk. They've got too much going on. There's so many tickets. There's so much stuff going on. It's very boring for them. And what would be neat is if there were something that could help accelerate things, make it easier for them. Now, one of the problems that I've seen when I was starting doing this research is I thought that it might be that the help desk people were just slow or not able to do stuff, and it actually turns out that they're quite competent and fast at doing this stuff, because turns out you've got a lot of repetition doing it. But there's other issues such as link speeds, low latency or high latency connections between remote offices, stuff that makes the tools that we have already within the environment more painful. So I'm expecting a lot of hands up here. How many people have used the user object MMCs in Windows domain environments? You open that up, right? And then what happens as soon as you open the user's container? You wait. And that value of wait can be somewhere between 5 seconds, 30 seconds, maybe more, depending on how beat up your domain controller is. Well, now imagine doing that every single call, every single time you do that. And that's just maddening and frustrating. So the main issue is one of wait time. There's a lot of idle. And so it's, loading, ain't nobody got time for that. So what we need to do is figure out ways that we can make things faster for them. So we need to start using our tools better. And one thing that, I don't mean to knock blue team people, but I notice that the red team in general tends to be a little more creative with how they use their tools, with what they've got available to them. If you attended Chris Gates's talk and Rob Fuller's talk on attacking systems without exploits, they showed you how to do total domain own without a single tool that was not native to Windows. Every single thing was there. So where's your application whitelisting, huh? It's gone. So what we need to start doing is using our toolkit better. And I like Bob Ross. So not only is he Happy Trees and Happy Cloud guy, but the one thing that I always really, besides his smooth voice, was that he did such a good job of, if he made a mistake, he'd be like, oh, well, I guess we're going to build a little happy shed here. And he just went with the punches. He found things and just teased them out. Well, one of the things that I was chatting with some folks about this situation, and somebody said, hey, you should check out Active Directory Web Services. Show of hands. Who here's heard of that? Okay, a couple people, but not many. Active Directory Web Services is an amazing thing. It's not new. It was released, so as the name implies, it's a web service. It was released when Windows 2008 R2 was released. That's 2009. So it's been out for a while. All the connections are SOAP, which, thank you, Redmond, thank you. Because finally we have a standards-based protocol that really, honest to goodness, is standard, not like their crazy munged up LDAP or their goofy stuff that they've been doing. This is an honest to goodness open standard that is just what it claims it is. By default, it's HTTPS. Yes, please, thank you, that's awesome. From a security standpoint, that's sweet. And it's fast. Those of you who have played around with Active Directory Web Services, would you agree that it's fast? Yeah, it is OMG, WTF, BBQ, crazy fast. I love it. It's great. In fact, when I first started playing with it, I thought that I had somehow cached things on my computer. It was great. So, but wait, there's more. It runs on a single port. So have you ever tried to manage, show of hands here, whoever has managed firewalls? Okay, wow, a lot of y'all. How painful is it when they say, well, you got to punch a hole in the wall for the domain controller to talk from this trusted subnet to this trusted subnet? What happens to your firewall and ACL rules? It looks like Swiss cheese, right? Well, what's neat is that this service is meant to be, at least the roadmap has it being, a click-for-click replacement of the myriad of services that are open. And if you don't believe me, for those of you who didn't raise your hand, let me pull up this. I thought I had it. I'll have to pull that later. Okay. But it's a single port, so that makes managing the firewall really nice and easy. Sorry about that rough transition. But it is a very open standard. So let me get this over here. They've got a great intro on how it works. Very well documented, very approachable as opposed to the normal TechNet stuff. Highly recommend that you check it out. It's very nice. Another thing that they have is, because it's a full web service, it's got its own WSDL, and it's actually defined. You can scroll through and do this. Pen testers, please take note. What do you do when you find a WSDL? What do you do? Yeah, you start fuzzing, you start abusing it, you start doing all kinds of nastiness. Another thing, if you recall a couple slides back, I said that it's all in HTTPS. There are ways that you can actually disable it and make Active Directory Web Services happen in HTTP. Hey, that's pretty awesome. So this is not just a thing that's good for the blue teamers, this is a thing that's great for red teamers, or at least has great potential. But yet it's still Microsoft. So here's my one complaint about this. When you're looking through their documentation guide, this is what they have to say about security. Why? So, I'm sorry about the slow transitions. Whatever juju's required to get the video working is really wreaking havoc on my system. All right, so there's a couple requirements, though, to get this thing working. If you are in a server, on a server rather, you already have the stuff that you need in order to make it work. As soon as you now promote a 2008 R2 or higher server to domain role, it will automatically install the Active Directory Web Services component, that portal light up. And assuming that people can communicate with it, you know, you can block that via GPO or standard old firewall rules. But assuming that they can communicate with that, it's TCP. I mean, it's just a standard port. But the thing that's really neat, and this is more germane to our talk about the help desk, is that the help desk folks can actually have the AD components installed on their workstations. Vista or better supports it. I would recommend that you don't use Vista, but that has nothing to do with just this specifically. I think it's just a bad OS, period. But you can install it. The process is a little tedious. I'm hoping to get a couple blog posts out there and maybe make a couple PowerShell or batch commands that will help ease that transition. But there are TechNet articles on how to install it on the Win 7 and Win 8 OSs. Once you install that, you get a couple neat things. But there's a couple issues. So developers think, hey, SOAP, it's great, it's awesome. If you just say, hey, help desk person, here's an XML service, go to town, they'll be like, what? I have no idea what to do with this. It's meant for machine interaction. It's not human consumable. So what somebody at Microsoft did is they've developed a series of PowerShell commandlets. Now, these PowerShell commandlets allow you to interact with that web service from the command line. So, woohoo, that's awesome. Those of you who know me know that I love the command line. And it's really cool. Now, the thing that a lot of people don't understand is that there's a huge plethora of them. I'm trying to get this. Let's try this. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, hey, there we go. So let's change the display here. Can you guys see that? Okay. I think I broke it. No, sorry about the display fail. So you'll just have to humor me here, but what you get is if you are in your PowerShell environment, you can type git-AD, and PowerShell supports command completion, and you can just hit tab to tab through all the different commandlets that you have. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with PowerShell, unlike Unix or regular DOS, you can't do like --help or /?. What you have to do is this goofy nomenclature. You have to say git-help and then the command that you wanted. So if you want help on the AD user object, you do git AD user. Like that, and then it tells you all the commands. Now, the thing that's really super awesome is Microsoft has a standard that if you are going to be a core PowerShell commandlet, you have to include a lot more than this. For instance, you can type in examples, and it will actually give you command line items that you can enter, and you're off to the races. I think this is pretty freaking sweet. This lowers the barrier to entry. This makes it a lot neater. Now, those of you who are familiar with Unix might be saying to yourself, that's neat, that's cool. I like the CLI, that's awesome. But that's really long and convoluted. These commands are big and chunky. I'm not used to this. I want like small, short things. How am I going to train the help desk? How am I going to get them to be using these things? And I would say, good luck if you're trying that. That's why I'm here to talk to you about HAT, the Help Desk Automation Toolkit, which, with Dave's permission, is very similar to SET. Let's get this going here. Oh. And so here we are with HAT version 0.01, the Help Desk Automation Toolkit. And the whole point of this is for users to be able to just run a PowerShell and have simple menu-driven type stuff. So now here's the neat thing. Oops, sorry about the volume here. So say a user calls the help desk and they say, hey, help desk, I need my password reset. You simply would do the following. You would log in and say user task. We're going to look up a user. And then I've included a couple different lookup methods. Now, here's the thing that, okay, two things. One, I hope the demo gods are kind at this point because I'm about to query a remote domain controller in the Amazon Cloud EC2 instance over a Sprint Smart Link. So we'll see how that goes. The other thing is, if this works, which I'm hoping it does, you'll understand why it's so fast. A lot of hands shot up when you said that you use the user MMC search tools. How long would it take for you to go through a domain and find a user based off of a last name using the traditional MMC snap-ins? Take a guess. Say it's a large enterprise, like 10,000 plus user objects. It's not going to be quick, is the comment, and I would agree. Would you say like about a minute, maybe? About a minute? Okay, now, please work. And remember, this is going over 3G. Oh, well, caused it to crash. Hold on a second. Okay, look up last name to look up for. Boom. There you go. It's just that fast. So, here's the thing that's neat. At this point, the way the web services work is that these aren't just the names, these are the actual Active Directory user objects. I have the containers for all these people that match this criteria. So at this point, if I wanted to, programmatically, I haven't implemented this yet, we could do something like say, Clan Douglas ticks everyone off and you got to fire everybody named Douglas. You could do a mass action on all people with the name Douglas. It's pretty kind of cool. Or whatever criteria you want. So if you have a division that, they broke off and did their own startup, you could just chunk them off the domain and, move them away. So it's pretty cool. Then the thing that's neat is at this point now, let's say I'm going to work with myself here. Mick Douglas is 10. At that point, it just pulls up my info and it's got all my schema objects. So I can do really whatever I want. I can reset passwords, unlock the stuff. So that's the whole point of this tool. That's what I'm saying is we can use tools that are in existence, that are fast, they're free, and this is really cool. Now, I was hoping to release this. However, while I was doing my demos, I realized that I could fairly reliably crash the domain controller, and I'm pretty sure that's my fault because I'm a poor coder. So what I'm going to do, later on I'll have my contact information. If you want version 0.0.1, I'll be happy to share it with you, but you have to pinky swear promise not to run it in production because you saw just how fast this works. You can do a whole lot of damage, and it's really, really fast, which is very concerning. One thing that I'd like to point out is I hope and pray that nobody normally has folks in the schema admins group. Using this web service component, you can bollocks up your domain schema with record-setting speeds. So that's yet another thing to be aware of, and yeah, I did that. So it's a purple team tool. Well, so this tool, this iteration is mainly meant for more blue team help desk type folks. But the advantage is if you look through this from a red team perspective, you can see the commands that are being used to generate this. It's really neat in that I don't know a lot of tools that allow you to do some of the group querying that this allows. You can get very complex clauses. The way this tool, the AD object works is it has a SQL-like query statement. If anybody's familiar with the WMIC command set, how it has that selection criteria, it's very, very similar look and feel. So you can do some pretty interesting stuff. So that's the tool. Let me get back to the presentation. Oh, hold on a second. Okay, let's try this again. All right, cool. Got it back. All right. So as you can see, this is like some really promising stuff. I've been having fun geeking out with this. It's a lot of neat stuff. The thing that I'm really, really excited about is that it's scriptable. And man, this is how I feel when I'm working on this. I love it. Tim Swint, this one's for you, my man. And scriptable is so very nice. There's very few CLI jockeys out there. I cut my teeth on a 300 baud acoustic coupler modem, so I'm very used to the command line. Not a lot of folks are. And so because of that, I'm comfortable with the CLI, but even PowerShell seems very long and arbitrary and unwieldy. And I don't know if that will happen, like eventually I'll feel comfortable with it or not. It is large. So using this framework can help abstract some of those really arcane commands, and it's nice. And one thing that I would like to stop right now in this industry is the concept of, oh, this tool is more elite than the others because it's harder to use. I was at a talk, actually I was at a couple talks where people made fun of SET because of the numbered menu system. Okay, so maybe you have some script kiddies using the tool as a result. That's neat. But the problem is, I can be doggone sure that if you're the person that says, well, you know, gosh, set is so lame because I can totally pwn these with the Metasploits, there's somebody else out there that's like, Metasploit? Kid, I got Netcat. And then I'm sure there's somebody else that's like, Netcat? I just plug the RJ45 into my mouth and send exploits down the wire. So here's the deal. When you hear somebody talking about like, oh, this tool's so elite, this tool's so cool, or this tool is too newbie, just call them out on it. Our industry isn't based on that kind of crap. There's no rock stars. There's just people who've got lucky. They found something that they love, and they love sharing it with you. One of the things that I like to tell people about is one of the first scenarios where I ran into that. It was '94. I was working at my girlfriend's father's computer store at the time. And I picked up a 3.5 floppy disk. For those of you who are too young to remember it, that's the one that wasn't totally floppy. It actually had a rigid plastic case. And I had been using the Commodore 64 all the way up to '94. So I know I was a bit behind the curve. Yeah, I love the Commodore. It's great stuff. So, and those 5.25 floppies were honest to God floppy. And Todd, who was the the senior technician there. On my first day, I'm like, oh, this is those hard disk things that I've been reading about. And Todd goes, this is actually a floppy disk. Don't you know anything? And so I was like, well, no, actually, I'm just asking questions. No harm in doing that, right? And he goes, whatever, noob, and has this real condescending attitude. So flash forward to today. I'm privileged to be talking to you all. Thank you for coming to talk to me. Todd still works there. Booyah, Todd! Schadenfreude tastes pretty good. So the abstraction advantage here is that we can make this tool very approachable, very easy. That's the guiding design principle. I want something that's fast. I want something that just works. I want something that just gets the job done. I need people. I need help. So did the demo. I need testers. I need test environments. I need feedback. I need script ideas. There's a lot of power and capability here. I'm most likely going to go back to my WMIC and roots. I love, love, love WMIC. And I'll be playing around with the get WMI object commands that are available in PowerShell to be doing some host interaction stuff that I hope to be talking about in the future. I will even be happy to take your command scripts if you have them, if they're available to be given. There's two catches on them. One, you're going to get full credit if you need to be anonymous for work reasons or whatever. I appreciate that and I will respect that. But the other is that it will take me a little bit of time to integrate in it because having seen what Dave Kennedy can do with PowerShell, I'm very gun shy and I don't want somebody to be weaponizing this toolkit. So one last thing, and I know this is a crazy request, but if you have domain instances that are available for me to test against, maybe VPN into, I promise I'll be good. I do have a blue team side of me. I need to have that because one of the things that I've noticed is in my testing, I've been playing around with this for a couple months now, is that not all Active Directory systems are the same. So, and I see people going like, well, no kidding. Hey, I'm a Unix guy, back off, okay? And so based off of how the domain trusts are set up, how the trees are set up, that can have impacts. I've seen some weirdness happen when you actually have like a Novell domain controller, like as the main trunk. Some of the feature set doesn't quite work out yet. So if you can, get me a VPN. So yeah. All right, so thank you very much, DerbyCon staff. Thank you for all the C-Bus hackers giving me a lot of support. Thank you, podcasters. You guys make the commutes bearable and enjoyable a lot of times. And I really do want to appreciate all of you guys for showing up here because I realize you've had a lot of con and you're probably fed up and you're ready to get back to your regular lives. Thank you for taking the time to be here. Here's my contact info. If you want the code, I'll be happy to share. Understand, I'm a really bad coder. I'm hoping to be giving a demo of this talk again next week. So I don't know if I will be able to like share before then or not, but I'll respond to every email. Pinky swear. Thank you so much. So any questions? If not, thank you so much for attending and have safe travel.